you're assigning these properties distinctively and not.
Yeah, what's the argument for that?
Wait, it's not truth apps. What do you mean argument for that?
Shut your lame ass up, man.
A few moments later.
I'm sorry. No, you claiming that I signed something is something that's going to be a first order object level claim about what I did. So that is going to be something that's truth app. You. You're so. You're so. You said. Oh no, I want the argument for me assigning properties distinctively. Dumb.
I didn't say you assigned distinctive properties.
Okay, then that's a concession. Keep going.
Okay, just to clarify, so we're going to be affirming why secret losses posted on TikTok. You claim that Tron is assigning properties distinctively, right? So, first of all, when he asked you to prove that, you didn't prove that. Your response to him asking you that question was to say that, well, him assigning those properties distinctively is not that which is truth that. But that's fucking false, right? It can be the case that Tron is not assigning those things distinctively. So, in that sense, it is truth that, and you would just be wrong. And you can even say that when it comes to Tron not assigning these properties distinctively, that is a thing which can have non-zero probability or be possible, right? So there's going to be room for it to be false. It's not axiomatically true. It's not a stipulation or anything. So number one, it is propositional. You lied. You blundered badly. And number two, you couldn't stand on your claim. Instead, you attempted to, hedge, but it just didn't work. But then here's the worst part, right? So not only did you make a claim you couldn't stand on, just to be clear, when we make claims, they don't all have to be propositional to be motivated, right? We can maybe talk about acceptability. That's going to be separate from some things of lethic status. So it's not always about that thing being propositional. That's going to be a blunder. But number two, the worst thing is that you said verbatim in the rec that you never claimed he's assigning these properties distinctively. But then the nigga Tron went back in the rec and he played the clip of you saying that, bro. So not only did you make a claim you cannot defend, you don't even recall saying it, but you're just fucking conceding to it. On top of that, it's just false. Nigga, that was terrible. I don't know how you're going to respond to this. Before you do, I want to know, right? Number one, why is it the case that anything you say is actually applicable towards my argument, which I just gave? Because if it's not, I'm dismissing it. Number two, why is it the case that anything you say is true? Because if it's not, I'm dismissing it. I want your theory of truth and how you cash that out given the conversation, why it's acceptable. Number three, why is anything you're saying justified? The things you say have to be true and justified. It must be established, and also you must demonstrate the things of lethic status in respect to the conversation, otherwise I dismiss it. So on top of that, I want your theory of justification and how you cash that out given the conversation and why that's acceptable. On top of that, I want to know why your terms are virtuous. The reason why your terms must be virtuous is because your terms aim to apply onto things or account for things or explain, describe things. So it's the case that if they're not virtuous, it just follows that we have less credence to posit your terms over other terms, because there is going to be terms which are possible or possibly exist, which are going to be more virtuous than your terms. And those terms might negate the things you're talking about, or not really agree with the material content or faith of what you're positing. So I want to know why it's the case that your terms are something credential given the conversation, which would grant those type of things. On top of that, I want to know why it's the case that anything you say actually warrants a response from me. I could just dismiss all your points. If you think I can't, I want you to prove that. If you say it's a birdership, I want you to prove that. And even if I did, why is it the case that birdership is going to be vicious in nature and I can't do it given the conversation? Because I'm with that as well. So you can go with that. Also, I'm sorry, I'm not done yet. Chill. Also, why is it the case that it cannot be an inferential nowless in respect to your position? I don't know why it's the case that your inferences actually hold. I don't know why it's the case that it can't be an lethic nowless in respect to your position. Holy fuck. Because it could be the case that maybe they're going to be these theories we talk about truth being deflationary in some sense or in some nature. It just means that when it comes to you being true, that's the thing which is not going to be really meaningful. Given the type of talks we're having, it could just be a thing that we use to, demonstrate our beliefs or reasons for believing in a certain thing. So under that kind of account, it could be the case that I can dismiss what you're talking about again. So I need you to give me your response to those type of positions and why is the case that anything you're saying is credential. And if not, I'm dismissing all your points. So I want you to go ahead and also tell me why is the case that anything you say defeats what I'm talking about. I want to know the type of defeater and why is it the case that data itself of this conversation is going to be sufficiently plugged in to that defeater and then entail that I'm not justified in my position, or that my position is not true. Because again, you can't demonstrate that I'm defeated in some strong sense, and I would just dismiss your points and still have it trivially follow that from the discussion. Because my point is just not be defeated in the strongest sense. That's about it. And also, if you didn't respond to everything, yes.
Alright, bro. Yeah, so just go with me real quick, bro. I'll let you speak the whole time, so I don't want to hear any interruptions. Okay. So talking about these theories of truth and justifications, those are irrelevant, right? Let's just explain something real quick. When we have theories, or like a theory of X, all that does is describe some interesting facts or properties of that concept. Right? It's not giving you a general definition of the concept, which is the only definition required, or that needs to be input in order to have a proper conversation about the concept. You fucking autistic retard, bro. Like, bro, come on, stop with the meta debate, bro. I have to like deadass, bro. Stop, please. Like, there's no point, but it's a meta debate about whether me or Tron, who won, like, out of these two people. Like, stop. But I really think inferentialists, nigga, I really think inferentialists don't hold to any inferences. So then we can just say that argument they just gave why Tron beat me, just like infer your conclusion. Hey, thank you, bro. Like, stop. Just stop. Like, stop with meta debating. Let's go back to the actual point. Right, so all these theory, I'll give this theory, or this is can I be honest about that? I just give an affirmation, by the way, right? Which, depending point of view, an affirmation, you can negate the theorem. Like, for example, let's say someone holds to pragmatic acceptability conditions and does not hold the truth. Like, for example, Flo, like back then, right? He would say if you affirm X, that would just be affirming that X is acceptable, right? And those will be ethical claims, right? So you can have distinct schemas on affirmation there. I just gave affirmation, so I don't know why you presuppose that's the truth. Yeah, so that was really weird. I mean, like, that's weird. But yeah, just go back to the point. I did not say, about the fact about assigning properties distinctively, that's just negating secondary existential truth-bearing conditions from already like extrapolated that we're going to apply within the recording. What I said there is specifically, when you were assigning the properties distinctively, right, that's the thing that I said is not true that, right? Not assigning properties distinctively or trying to assign the properties distinctively is something which is not going to be true that. Right? I said, when I said you're not assigning properties distinctly, that's the thing which is not true that, right? Now, let's just explain what a secondary existential truth-bearing condition is, because he doesn't know what that is, right? So, a secondary existential truth-bearing condition is just in order for some truth to correspond to reality, it must satisfy these conditions indexed to the pragmatic type of the sentence. Holy shit, this nigga won't shut the fuck up 1 sec. Alright, so I'll just over that. Okay, so specifically, right, the pragmatic type of the sentence there is a when sentence, right? So I can give multiple examples of something including truth ab statements. However, the sentence itself via the fact of its pragmatic type is not truth ab. Right? So, like, for example, let's say if Ernest is eating, right, and I will finish the sentence. Do you think that's truth ab? Obviously, it's not truth ab. If Ernest is eating, it's not a truth ab statement. Right? But if I just go ahead and be a retard and just clip out the part if Ernest is eating, I just clip out the part it says Ernest is eating, and I say, no, this is not truth ab. That's obviously dishonest, because when I say it's not truth ab, that's not in context to the truth ab statement within the sentence, rather than I'm talking about the whole entire type of sentence, which also includes the if conditional structure, right? So you're neglecting secondary existential truth-bearing conditions. When you're assigning the properties distinctively and not fleshing it, there's not shit. I can give you another example. When Axiom was tweeting, right? I don't fish anything. What's going on? What's there, right? So this is just a whole big ass slide that I made. I didn't say that you are assigning properties distinctively is something which is not true. Rather, the sentence question mark, when I said you assign the properties distinctively, question mark, that's something which is not going to be true. Right? We can even go through the recording. I clarified this multiple times. So now you're neglecting secondary existential truth conditions, which I already extracted within the rec multiple times. I can even show you that, right? And it just shows the context of those conditions within the rec. And also, when I said I did not say that, right? I didn't say that. I did not say that trying to assign the properties distinctively, right? Because I affirmed that, given that I said when you assign the properties distinctively. But what I'm saying here is that I didn't say that is a thing which is not true that, right? So that's another inflation. I didn't say that. I said that thing is not true that, right? So that's another inflation. So you didn't actually listen to the rec. Oh, I think I'm stupid ass nigga. Nigga, shut up, bitch. That's something he fucking suck off Tron, bitch. Like, I see you there coming sucking your dick. Alright, bro. Holy shit.
You done?
Yeah, I have more points of why I beat Tron, but right now I just contest your points, so let me just extend my points for why I beat Tron, if that's fine.
Okay, you can do that after because we're first getting off the cliff. Now we established my criterion for why it's the case you lost. So I'm not sure why the rest of the rec would actually matter. You need to attack that as well. But also, you said theories of truth and justification are irrelevant. Well, when you say irrelevant, I don't know what that means to say. Maybe you're trying to say it's not going to be substantive or something which is not really connected to the conversation. If that's the case, I want you to motivate that. Otherwise, I'm dismissing it. And you said theories describe these properties of concepts, not general definitions. And then you mentioned, I think I slipped it. Then you said, which is the only definition required. I don't even know that was fucking coherent, but I don't really know what that aims to do given the conversation. Are you saying that given your definition is the only thing that's required and you don't have to posit an entire theory? Maybe? No idea. Now, so, goddamn, this nigga cannot speak English. You said a lethic inferentialist. Nigga, what? Okay, typically, what inferences are not true. The conclusion is true. The inference is how we get to the conclusion being true. So I don't know how you could possibly mistrack that and sound that terrible. And also, I think you misunderstood the entire point of me bringing up things like inferential nihilism, alethic nihilism, and nihilism toward justification. That was the aim to do something in respect to your credences when you debate your points or argue your points or your positions. So you totally mistrack what that aims to do. So wow. Anyways, so again, now the point I really want to get to is the secondary existential truth condition, whatever the fuck that is. Number one, I want you to tell me why. I was recall. Holy fuck.
By the way, Secret, can you make your like mic quieter?
Yeah,
like,
He can do it after. I don't know why he loud mic so much. But yeah, first off, bro, I placed many burdens on you at the start of the debate. You didn't really respond to them. I want to clarify that for the record. But on top of that, when it comes to your definition of a secondary existential truth condition, I want you to tell me why the definition is something which is virtuous and fits your conceptual scheme. Because if it doesn't, if it's incoherent or incongruent with your conceptual scheme, I would just dismiss it. I want you to tell me why it's virtuous and why we should have credence towards your definition and its use given the conversation. Otherwise, it's not meaningful. Now, you keep saying the sentence is not truth that. That's what's in question. That's the question bag, and that's vicious. You want to explain why it's not truth that? I'll just put it in different words or restate the proposition you're trying to affirm. That's fucking retarded. And also, you said that you gave an example, right? And then in response to the example, or to follow up with the example, you said, what's truth out there? That only demonstrates your lack of knowledge, your lack of epistemic access to what is the truth bearer, given the type of thing you were talking about. But your knowledge itself does not actually entail whether or not a thing is propositional. Our epistemology and what's propositional are completely fucking different. I don't know why you tried to draw that inference, but I was fucking retarded. That's a bad blunder. Again, everything you do is just a blunder. You have blundered ontology, bro. I need you to lock in and stop being a plumber. That's my time, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to be clear, when we're talking about what is truth bit, I said that just to make sure that because he can't really answer the question. Because it obviously isn't truth that. So it's just like Tron could have just to show that it's not truth that. Like, just to show the absurdity will make the audience feel like it's just absurd when you say that. So when actually twerking is a truth statement, right? So that's just rhetorical jab, right? I don't know why he's trying to say that shit about like me trying to infer a conclusion via etymology. Like, bro, come on. It's rhetorical jab, calm down. Right? Now, for secondary existential truth, I don't really mean for the definition of something to be virtuous, right? I have no idea what that means. I want you to clarify that. And even then, I would also need an explanation why one definition has to be virtuous, right? Now, about the theory thing, right? When I said something's irrelevant, now you're just vague meaning. You said you don't know what relevant means. Like, bro, come on, bro, like, stop. You just actually engage, like, you actually think you're part one, bro, like, just defend them, bro, stop with this shit, right? So, talking about theories of truth, right? Again, I've already explained why they are irrelevant. They only describe or pose some criterions of truth and justifications and etc. Those theories of truth, theories of justification, they only describe and characterize some intrinsic facts about those concepts, right? And I said that's the only definition needed. I said the general definition is the only definition needed to talk about these concepts coherently. We don't have to pose any type of justification, right? And that's highly dependent. Let's say we're debating on our theories of truth, right? In that context, yeah, that the definition or intentional extensional types of definition that embeds criterion for these concepts, right? In that context of that topic, yeah, sure, we would have to also give those intentional definitions, not the general definition. But here we're just talking about metadata of me versus Tron, which doesn't invoke any requirement to talk about these intentional definitions that embed criterion of truth or intrinsic facts about the concept, right? So I've already justified that. I already justified that in self-standard and pride, right? So he's also not backing on that. Now, again, I've already extrapolated what a true secondary existential truth bearing condition is. In order for something to be true, right, it must satisfy these conditions, which the conditions are just there, that it's going to be compatible or that it fits the description of the pragmatic type indexed within the sentence, right? So let's say in the sentence, if I eat food, right, and I don't complete the sentence, that's not going to be truth that, right? So you can say if I eat food, when we have primary and secondary existential truth bearing conditions, right? A primary truth bearer is just more truth bearing conditions. It's just some condition for like having subject and predicate structure. But those are just necessary conditions, not sufficient conditions. So something can satisfy a single necessary condition. However, it is not the case that it might satisfy some primary condition, or let's just say either primary or a single necessary condition. It can satisfy a single necessary condition. However, that's not going to imply that it actually fulfills that thing. Like, for example, the necessary condition to start a car is just, for example, if it has the key. Let's just say so, right? It's just an example, so I don't care if you do that wrong. But let's just say you need to have the keys, right? Someone can have the keys, but there are other conditions which don't allow it to start. Like, for example, you don't have enough oil or gas, whatever you niggas call it, right, in your car, etc. The car like has to be like in perfect conditions, etc. Not perfect conditions, but just good conditions enough to move, etc. Right? So, what? I'm going to continue, bro. Yeah, so the reason why this doesn't satisfy a secondary existential bearing condition is because when I said you are assigning the parties distinctively, right? That's why I said verbatim, and then complete that sentence, right? In different pragmatic type, that's something which is not going to be a truth that, right? So and I said I didn't say that, again, I have to repeat this multiple times because you didn't listen, right? When I said I didn't say that, that was in reference to me saying that when Tron said, oh, so you said that this thing is not truth that, or that this thing is not truth that. I'm saying I never said that it was not truth that. Not the thing, I never said the thing itself. Right? Rather, I'm denying that I ever said that this thing is non-true that. right? So I have to clarify that as well. And also, you said there were multiple buildings that I haven't satisfied, right? I've told you that these, when I'm talking about the intrinsic concepts and theories of truth and etc., these are all satisfactions of these type of buildings. The only thing left is just the inferential analysis. And yes, I didn't misspoke. I said alethic inferentialist. That's my bad. I was thinking about alethic analysis for a second because I wanted to respond to that point as well. And my brain just fixed on the words. That's my bad. Yeah, I apologize for that. But right, specifically, alethic my bad. But inferential nihilism. Just say that there are no inferences, right? So then your argument for why Tron beat me will not convey the conclusion that Tron beat me, right? You're arguing for that will not convey that conclusion, right? So also when you say alethic inferentialist, you don't know what that is. An alethic inferentialist that talks about inferences in concepts, possibilities, necessities, and impossibilities, and etc. Right? So you don't even know what that is, right? Also, please start with the meta debate, but it's not gonna work. Since you actually think you have a good case for Tron beating me, go ahead. Now, I don't. He's not just meta debate, so I think I was gonna give my point for why I think I beat Tron on the probabilistic point as well. So on the probabilistic point, right? So I told him that it's problematic to say a hypothesis H is going to be both probable and certain at the same time. That's going to be contradictory. It's a P not P. So it's problematic. Tron said, no, it's not problematic. I said, how is it not problematic, Tron? And then he said, we can have something which is certain or probably certain, right? And I said, Tron, in the first one, you're assigning two distinct Bayesian properties to the first hypothesis, right? The hypothesis H. But in the other one, right, you're saying that the probability of the hypothesis H being certain is between 0 or is just above 0.5 and under 1, right? So those are two distinct claims. I gave him the century breaker, right? So he told me to give the century breaker and I gave him the century breaker. Later on, he didn't, look at this. He said, why is the century breaker relevant? Okay, so the burden he placed on me was, he was asking why it's relevant. Like, that is his own burden, right? And I extrapolated why it's relevant, because in the first one, he would be positing a contradiction, which is obviously problematic, right? I wasn't disagreeing with contradictions being problematic, so I don't want you to debate about me, or debate with me on whether contradictions are problematic, because we're just talking about who won the debate, right? So now there are multiple problems with your position, and you're not actually really tracking anything properly, right? So, yeah, that's just pretty much it. You can find.
All right, so first off, you said I can't answer. I want you to justify that. Otherwise, it's just a rhetorical jab. And if it's a rhetorical jab, you're not really focusing on substance. It just means you have credence to say they lose in the conversation. That's bad when it comes to your part. And again, you keep saying it obviously is not truth depth and inferring that from the truth bearer being unclear. The truth bearer being unclear does not entail it's not truth depth. I want you to motivate that inference. I don't grant that. Anyways, want me to clarify virtuity when it comes to your terms? I already did. I gave two reasons as to why your terms need to be virtuous via counterfactual reasoning, and I guess just via what our terms aim to do given these conversations, right? And on top of that, I don't really know what you refer to when you say it, right? There seems to be something anaphoric. Why is it the case that your semantics actually pick a thing out? Because obviously, if they don't track anything. They're not meaningfully valuable. They're not clear. They're not non-ambiguous or non-vague. So again, I would just dismiss these things. Not meaningful to be conversational under those conceptual ethics. Also, you said I'm debate gooning. I'm not sure that means to say that maybe I'm just talking about irrelevant things, but again, that's what's in question. I'm not sure how you arrived at that conclusion. You're fucking retarded. And then, holy fuck. All right, bro. This nigga's so autistic, bro. All right. So you said these theories, they posit some criterion to truth and justification, thus are not really needed because only a general definition is needed. The definition is different from the account. What the fuck? Actually, for the definition, the account, how you cash that out, and why it's susceptible. So you saying the definition is all that's needed? Number one, I don't grant that. I want you to prove that. Number two, does not attack my other motivations. You can't take a definition itself to be an account. What the fuck? Yo, nigga, you're autistic, bro. And also, if you say a general definition, like I don't know what general really means to say there. Maybe you're saying the term itself has a broad scope. I mean, okay, but that's going to be a problem, right? If a term has a broad scope, typically when a term is broad, unless we apply some type of context or priors to it, then it's going to often be too generic to use. It's not operationalized, right? It's not specific. It's not very reduced. It's not very clear. So having a really broad term and a really broad scope is going to be problematic for you. I want you to justify why is the case that a general definition is number one, non-problematic, and number two, can be used here. And number three, you're not defeating the other motivations I posited. So that doesn't even fucking matter. Now, onto the truth talk, right? You said truth equals to this pragmatic type within a sentence. I don't know what the fuck that means. I guess you're saying that a sentence and the way it's applied needs to be something which is coherent under your scheme. I want you to justify that because this theory of truth is very, very confused and retarded. So I'm not going to grant the conversation. And then you said that via your own definition or your account of truth is the case that Tron was not being truthed up. But again, that's in question. Why is it the case that under your account, Tron was not being truthed up when you said certain things? And then you mentioned necessary insufficient conditions and how it implies that it's not fulfilled, I guess, the thing you're aiming at. I don't know what the thing really refers to. I don't know why it matters. I don't know how it even responds to my points. But even then, I don't know what fulfill really means. When you say fulfill, typically it just means some kind of sufficiency, right? So that might be indexed to maybe you have enough of a thing to infer a conclusion. So I'm not sure how is the case that it's not fulfill these things you're talking about. Why does it even matter given the conversation? It could just be a thing which is incoherent, idiosyncratic. And under those schematics, I would just dismiss them again. And then you said it doesn't satisfy secondary existential truth conditions because when you assign properties distinctly, index pragmatic type, something which not shoot that, like holy fuck that, yeah. I'm not replying to that, Brian. You said you never said the thing itself isn't truth. I want you to prove that. You want me to respond to naive Nihilism? You're fucking retarded. I think you mentioned inferential nihilism in response to me bringing it up to posit credence towards your view or why your view is credential to be accepted. Well, I'm not assuming it's true, by the way. I just motivated why it's the case he must respond to it. So that's going to be a mistrack and a blunder. Now, on to probability. You said you won that point, but you told him problematic to say that H is probable and at the same time certain because contradiction. I want you to demonstrate the P and not P when it comes to that sentence. I'm not sure where that comes from. And Tron said it's not, right? Tron said we can have certain probability. I mean, that's fine. Under his type of, I guess, scheme or semantics, that can mean something meaningful and coherent, not a contradiction, logically speaking. So I'm not sure where you infer that from. I'll see somewhere you got it from, right, in the conversation. And then you said that the reason why you gave us a Minchi breaker, or why, like, I guess, Tron's burden shifting, because your aforementioned explication was motivation for why his view is problematic. But the thing is, it's not really justified whether or not something being probabilistic and something being certain is the same as a thing being probabilistically certain. Okay, one of them could just be a thing which is combined, or just like one term. Another thing would just be two distinct things that he refers to, right? A distinct meaning. So it's not going to be a P and not P, necessarily speaking, which justifies the case that he had two distinct meanings with those words. Otherwise, your point falls apart. And on top of that, again, do not respond to many of my meta points. And when it comes to me meta arguing, I'm going to do that, of course, to clarify and reduce your stance and make sure your presupposition can be granted. I'm not going to give you things for free, obviously. That's how debate works. I don't know what you're crying about that. But go ahead. After this, we're going to conclude low key in like 30 minutes. And I got debate you for too long.
Yeah, so when I was talking about the necessary sufficient conditions, it seemed like he wasn't tracking that. Right? So when I said, for example, let's say I said that it only satisfies some necessary condition, right? That doesn't mean you fulfill the thing. I wasn't thinking. Just like, for example, the necessary conditions for X, right? Even if you satisfy like one necessary condition for X, that does not mean X is not going to be actualized or obtained, right? That's so fucking false. I gave you an example for that, right? So I use an example just for that as well, right? And when I said only the general definition is needed, right? I'm not saying that the general definition is the account. My whole entire fucking point is literally just that the general definition is distinct from the account. We don't need the account when talking about these concepts in some topics, so we only utilize the general definition to talk about these concepts, right? I've already motivated why we should only talk about the general definition within this context, right? Also, so when I say that when I say something has like a general definition, right? That's the definition within. Like, we have versatile propositional structure, which first talks about the core concept of the thing, and then some predicates, all that can be applied to the thing, right? And you can call that definition or some truths about the thing, right? So you have intentional and extensional types of definitions. When you have something like theories of truth, like for example, the truth correspondence theory, where if you have the definition of truth on the truth correspondence theory, where you would just be saying that something is true, right? If and only if it corresponds to reality. So proposition P corresponds to reality. However, that's just some criterion for truth or some predicates of truth or interesting facts of truth, right, being applied as a definition. That's an intentional definition, right? Which within Russell's propositional structure does not talk about the core concept of the thing. When you have the core concept of the thing, that's the only thing needed to talk about these concepts, right? So now, so that's why I don't have to satisfy any of those stupid ass burdens, like with all due respect, right? Now, talking about the probability point, right? Well, first of all, you said that's not a contradiction, but well, hold on. Tron never really actually gave an account of that within the rec, right? He just said it can be probably certain without, and I told him, right, there are contradictions, and those are interesting things. He never literally clarified why. So now you're debating me, right, on whether it's a contradiction instead of whether or not Tron actually had or justify why it's not a contradiction, right? This is a debate about me versus Tron, please, so keep on track, right? So when I would just want to think about the necessary and sufficient conditions. I'm saying that primary barrier conditions, right? Tron was saying that, oh, look, it satisfies a primary barrier, bro. So it is the case that's true. But I'm saying that's just a single necessary condition, right? And just satisfying a single necessary condition does not mean that S is going to obtain, right? So also, now let's go back to our probability then. You're assigning two distinct Bayesian probabilities, or not probabilities, but properties, or to a hypothesis if something is necessary, certain, and probable, right? Now, let's just clear what the contradiction is. Here you have a conjunction. I'm not sure if you can like listen, but as you see, probably and certain. Hypothesis H is probably and certain, meaning that it encompasses both of these properties, right? Now, me and Tron clarified the semantics within the recording, and he agreed with the semantics. What was the semantics of something to be probably the case, right? So something to be probably the case, I just established that something or elucidated for something to be probably the case, right? The probability assignment has to be under 1, right, and above 0.5, right? And then that's what it means for something to be probably the case within our usual semantics. I Tron said, okay, so you're right, that is, right? And then what does it mean for something to be certain? I said, Tron, in order for something to be certain, does not have to just specify a probability assignment of 1? And then he said, yeah, that's just what certainty is. Probability assignment equal 1. Nice, right? So here, since it is necessarily the case that the definition or the semantics of probability is just to have a probability assignment lower than 1, meaning that it's distinct from 1, and then you say that it's also certain, you're saying it's 1. So you're saying that the probability assignment is not 1 and 1, right? So that's a contradiction, that's P and not P. I've already extrapolated this in this. You're not listening. Bro, like, stop. I'm trying to, like, bro, I don't really want to beef with you. Like, you just ran beef with me in that server one day. In that Superman server, bro. But, like, I don't know if you got stuff with that shit, to be honest. It's just cool, right? And so, talking about... Yeah, you did. Right, so just talking about secondary existential conditions. When I see that index of pragmatic type, you have structures of sentences. Like, for example, let's say if you have if type sentences, right? You have when type sentences, and you just have ordinary sentences, right? Then you have like multiple types of sentences which need something to complete the sentence in order for it to satisfy truth aptness, right? And so what I mean there is that the structure of index of pragmatic type, that just means the structure of the sentence, right, would have to have something, or it would have to have something to complete it in order for it to be truth type, right? Those are type of pragmatic types of sentences. So pragmatic type, right, is just have the structural concept of the sentence. Right? And for virtuality, right, whatever you said there, you didn't explain the concept, right? So good, you already satisfied why my things have to be virtuous, right? But you really didn't explain what virtuous really means there, right? So that's what I'm hesitant on. You're not actually really replying to that. So let's just summarize everything real quickly. So I already established this connection breaker between those two concepts. Tron never gave an attack to that. You're the one now saying that there's not a connection breaker, but that's you debating. That's not Tron debating, right? So I want you to analyze what Tron was doing in the debate and not what you are doing. Okay. So I already explained how the conjunction there implies an assignment of two distinct properties, right? And he never really attacked that. And for the other one, right, when you say something is probably certain, that's applying another predicate to another predicate. That's not the same as saying that X has both of these predicates, right? That's completely distinct, right? So let's just explain why. Okay, so if you say something is probably certain, right? You would say that the hypothesis, let's just say, the hypothesis F states that the hypothesis H is certain, okay? So that's what F is. Now I want you to take this into account. Now we have the probability assignment. PF, right? So PF equals what? And then, yeah, and that's pretty much, you can say, like, for example, 0.8, right? So that's a claim of epistemic, or you're applying another predicate to another predicate. So you're saying that the probability of this thing being certain, right, is like 0.8, but that's not saying that it's both certain and probable, right? You're applying another predicate to another predicate. There's no conjunction of properties there, right? And I've already gave the contextual analysis for that. So if you want, we can just end this recording. If you like, you said you were not going to reply. You said, I'm not really going to reply to that. I mean, okay, I guess that's a point uncontended. I don't know why you would say that, but okay. It just seems like you got like knowledge gap on this. So yeah, we can end the recording if you want.
Yeah, okay, so number one, you said that's a point uncontended. I want you to prove that, and me saying I'm not going to respond to it again does not actually entail. I did not reply to that point earlier, so that's just going to be a random ass non sequitur. You're pausing for no reason. Now, number two, you said that it seems I wasn't tracking when it came to the condition talk. I want you to justify that your statements are actually something which is going to be accurately, I guess, tracking reality. Otherwise, I'll dismiss them because they're inaccurate and imprecise. So I want you to motivate that. You said I wasn't tracking. I want you to prove that as well again. And also, I'm not sure why you're bringing in actualization in respect to conditions. You're saying that if you don't fulfill a certain thing, it does not actually imply actualization. But given the talks we're having, we're talking about sentence structures, right? Sentences don't talk about like acting potency, for example, where actualization comes from. So it seems your term is very, very idiosyncratic. And you said use an example to justify your position, but whether or not that counts as justification is what's in question. So no, that's a question back. And then you said you don't need the account. You motivated why. I attacked why you do need the account, and I attacked your argument for it. You just weren't tracking that. So I mean, blown by that. You said Tron never gave an account. I want you to prove that. You said Tron did this, that in the rec. He never attacked you. I want you to justify that he never did that, or the things you're talking about. I want you to tell me what an attack is under your account, what's acceptable given the conversation. Otherwise, I dismiss it. And then you said what Tron did is going to be something which is more adjacent to a necessary condition, other than that which actualizes or is sufficient for actualization. I want you to prove that as well, because I don't grant that. It could be the case that what he says is sufficient. So I don't know why it's the case that it's only necessary. I don't know why it's the case that we should even adopt these conditional talks in respects to pragmatics, in respects to sentence structures. That just seems fucking retarded. And then you said the reason why it's a contradiction is a P and not P, it's a conjunction P and not P because these properties are distinct. That's another question, Beg. You mentioned probability assignment and how it can be, well, this means it can be under 1 and above 0.5. Those are the usual semantics, but even the usual semantics actually infer and entail that they're Tron semantics. Even though you didn't give an argument against that, it's actually entailed that those are his semantics once you put that it is. And then you said B, your extrapolation is a P and not P. I don't know why that counts as a demonstration of the contradiction. I don't get that at all. Also, I'm pretty sure you just begged the question given the conjunction. You're presupposing these two things are distinct predicates, but that's in question could be the case under his semantics or his account, or even just his meaning, right? Which is just going to be based on the intrinsic state and not what he says to you. It's a case of the things which are going to be identical in some sense and thus not contradictory. So I don't know, like, again, it's retarded. Now, you said we have different types of sentences. I want you to prove that, otherwise I dismiss it. You said they must complete these things to satisfy truth aptness. You're fucking retarded. Conditions usually are already on about truth, right? It's a requirement we must meet for X to obtain or be true. So if you're saying that the condition itself is going to be that which is prior to it being truth apt, not just true, but truth apt, I don't know what the conditions even mean to do there. Maybe the conditions are in respect to acceptability, for example. But I mean, again, I don't know where the normative aspect comes from when it comes to your conditions or type of talk. So that's just really incoherent and confused. And then you said, I think I responded to this. Tron did not fulfill a condition in respect to whatever type of sentence he says needs to complete to be truth depth. Again, I want you to prove that. You didn't prove that. And then the distinction point, yeah, there's another question, Beg. And on top of that, when I'm at a debate, that's me, again, addressing the substance. You have to reply to it. I told you why it's the case you must reply to it, because you presuppose it, and it reduces your stance and makes it clear. I gave other motivations you did not attack. So again, you can't just dismiss it. If you think you can, I want you to prove that. And again, when it came to you saying that the reason why you can't because of irrelevant, you didn't really prove that as well. You just said, come on, man, stop meta debating. I don't really care. Like, I mean, you're just copping out. You're tapping out debating. You chose to argue against me. Like, nigga, you chose this. What the fuck? Why are you crying about it? Let me see my notes. Yeah, that's like, that's pretty much it. Yeah, we can conclude, but I ain't gonna lie, it's been 4 minutes again. Class. You do something.
My bad. So, I can just get back
to closing. Okay, good.
Yeah, so closing is he never really gave a proper attention or argument against the secondary existential brain condition to put the question, do I satisfy the bit prior, right? Then on, he talked about the conjunctional properties being a question, but he never satisfied that bit as well. Somehow it's being a question, but I don't know how it's a question there. And I already told him, I didn't say that it's going to be a contradiction by the fact that these properties are distinct. I'm saying it's a conjunction of properties. So you have two distinct properties, right, being applied to a certain subject, and a different one is applying a property of a subject, which is two distinct things. So I'm not using that to justify that it's a contradiction. I'm using that to justify that they are distinct. So that's giving the symmetry proof. So you didn't even track that as well. And I've already extrapolated or explicated or elucidated multiple times, but I don't have to give some criteria or I have to give some criteria or intentional definitions, right? Because again, theory of truth justifications, they only talk about intentional or existential criteria for truth and justifications. Rather, just need a general definition to talk about concepts coherently, which I already justified them multiple times, right? So he also didn't listen to that. I'm pretty sure that he wasn't listening to the debate. And so, also when talking about pragmatic types, I already explicated the pragmatic types there. Just the structure of the sentence. When you say if, right? If X is leading, there needs to be something complemented or completed in order for it to be true. If X is, the structure of the sentence inherently invokes a if X, then Y, etc. Right? There are other types of structure of conditional, right? So if X, so X implies Y, etc. So if X, then Y, right? But there's no Y there to complete the sentence, it can be true. So some structures inherently index to their pragmatic type, right? It would be the case that it would require something to complete it. You can't just have if X and then boom, that's stupid. Right? I've already explained that. So we're talking about secondary existential two-band conditions. I pretty much explained everything there. Also, I would say Tron didn't satisfy a condition. I said that the sentence I said did not satisfy a secondary existential two-band condition. So it's not, I know what Tron said, right? So that's also another point which you didn't really listen to. And then talking about we said like you said something. I'm not sure what you said. You were like slubbering with yours. You said like that's a question, baby. That's what you basically said. That's a question, like I don't know why you did that. Because I'm not even joking. You can go there. He wasn't even speaking properly. He was speaking English. He was like, that's a question, baby. I was like, what the fuck, right? And you said you're not going to respond. You didn't respond to it prior, right? Because first of all, right, I made the point after you finished your response, right? And then later when you tried to respond back, you said you're not going to respond to it. So it's a new point that has just been made. And when you tried to respond to it, or when you were supposed to respond to it, you said, I ain't gonna respond to that, gang. Right? So that's not a response. Okay, you didn't respond to it, right? So you also appealing to the fact that I said, stop debating me, right, as something not being responsive, right? But your reasoning for what I said it's not going to, or your reasoning why I said it's not going to follow that, I could apply the same thing to you. You said it was a non-sequitur when I said, well, you said it doesn't really, you said that you won't respond to me. Well, you said just implies that you didn't give a response. You said that's a non-sequitur. We can apply the same thing here. How? Right? So you said, so we can apply the same thing. That's pretty much it. Right? There's other things to talk about. Hold on. It's about the symmetry breaker. I told him I gave the symmetry breaker. I gave Tron the symmetry breaker, right? But he never really responded to the symmetry breaker. And he just asked me why is the symmetry breaker relevant? Even though he's the one who presented it. Now his own daddy saying that his own, like, he's putting a question why his own villain is relevant. Like, what's going on, bro? Like, come on, bro. Like, yeah. And so just taking all of these into account, he really didn't do anything within the debate, but lose, right? And then talking about accountability and definition. Right, I actually already extrapolated how you did track that and I was true, man. I said that accountability, my whole point was to hinge upon the fact that accountability and general definitions are dissing, and then we only apply the general definitions when we talk about these concepts, right? Again, he never really explicated what he means by virtues there. So yeah, that's just gonna be my closing statement, and yeah, go ahead, Ernst.
Yeah, so number one, you said you don't know how it's a question back. Again, I don't think you lacking knowledge on what I'm talking about actually infers that you don't have a burden or that what I'm saying is incorrect or unjustified. So I'm not sure how to place the burden upon me. Thus, I dismiss it. Again, you're fucking retarded. When it comes to the conjunction of properties, you said it's not a contradiction to be distinct properties, but within the conjunction, they are distinct properties. They have to be distinct when it comes to their truth value, at least in that sense, because that pauses the P and not P, which infers a contradiction. So you just denied yourself and then went on to just reframe what you were talking about. You just can't adequately or intelligently defend your own points. You're fucking retarded. And we talked about how, when it comes to the general definition, they're going to be sufficient to talk about these concepts. Well, us talking about them is going to be different from using them and deploying them given our own epistemology or rationality or reasons. So that doesn't even matter. On top of that, I don't grade that as well as a question back again. And then you said it's going to be some structure of a sentence, and structure inherently invokes, for example, if X and Y. I want you to prove that. I don't grade that at all. You said that you can't just have if X because it's incomplete. I want you to prove that. Why is that thing? I think we should have given the conversation. Do not just for that at all. You said that I didn't respond to it prior because he made a point in response to my point. Doesn't really fucking matter. It's not entail it's a new point because it's only a new point if it's the case that it's completely distinct from the material content that we argued earlier. So the case that you could have responded to me, yet repeat yourself in different words, which just means not entail it's a new point. So via your own reasoning does not follow, and you're fucking false and retarded. You said we can apply the same thing to me when it comes to some kind of, I guess, response. I don't grant that. I want you to prove that. And on top of that, this is what loads here tend to do. They can't actually track the points or rejections, so they just say random fallacies. He made a non sequitur. Yeah, he wasn't talking. He questioned back. He's gonna You can't tell me how I'm questioning back, how I went circular, or how I'm not tracking. On top of that, I really questioned your own sequence when it came to you saying I'm not fucking tracking. You're retarded. Stop naming these random ass fallacies and pretending you're winning. You're ass. Utter ass. That's my closing, bro.